Inside the Birds is back. What's going on, everybody? Geoff Mosher and Adam Caplan for an Inside the Birds presented by our friends at Ocean Casino Resort in Atlantic City, the exclusive Jersey Shore resort of Inside the Birds. Well, since we last podded, and it was myself and Andrew DeCecco, Adam's back. But since then, Adam, we've had a preseason game, had a couple of practices, and as you start to look at the calendar now, the Eagles have fewer practices remaining and just one preseason game to go before it all is over and all the decisions have to be made, Adam. And so we're going to spend a lot of time in this podcast going through the intel that we've gotten from the game, the recent practices, but it's also time to start to look at certain groups and the numbers game, which is turning out to be not as easy as someone might have thought at some positions.
Yeah, and I think part of that is because of injuries. All of a sudden, they're down at receiver. They lost two defensive backs for the season, Mekhi Garner and Tyler Hall. We'll discuss that in a minute. Receiver, they're banged up. Tight end, they're banged up. Offensive line, they're banged up. Safety, they're getting through some numbers issue there. So yeah, some guys came back, which we'll get into. But yeah, I think part of that, of what you're discussing there, is due to injury. And then some guys are emerging, which some kind of updated information, which we'll give you. Interesting practices over the weekend, which we'll discuss. And this is the last week, technically, of training camp, I believe. And then you've got the off week, which is the former fourth week of the preseason, which is really the last week. You don't have a game. You do practice. And then here's the big deal. A week from tomorrow, it's gotten here already. It's cut down to 53 Tuesday.
Mm-hmm.
Tuesday at 4 p.m. Eastern, not 6. It used to be 6 p.m. Eastern. Now it's 4 p.m. Eastern on the 27th. Today is Monday the 19th. 8 days, we're down to 50, the 53-man roster. The next day, you could start signing up to 16 players to your practice squad.
Yeah, amazing how quickly it's come upon us. Now, the Eagles changed their schedule a little bit. They were originally scheduled to practice today, but they've amended that. They're going to have a walkthrough today instead. So that just shows you I think they're going to have Tuesday and Wednesday practice, obviously, but then they'll and we'll see what happens Thursday. They'll have a walkthrough and then they'll play the final game on Saturday, right? And then they'll have a day off after that. And then, as you just mentioned, there'll be very few time, just a couple of little less than 3 days before all the fun begins. So
yeah, they practice Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. They're definitely practicing Thursday unless they change it. It's on their schedule. But that one, because it's 2 days before game, will be light.
Right.
So it's interesting because they've got some decisions. You just talked about it. It seemed like a couple weeks ago, maybe even though we were only halfway through camp, that we're starting to get an idea of some things are probably going to happen. And then some guys regressed, some injuries, some guys got better. So we kind of have to take another look.
Right. By the way, we'll talk about it a little bit down, but the Vic Fangio Sunday press conference, yesterday's press conference with Vic, was maybe for a reporter, and I think for a fan, fans like honesty. They like to know what's going on. To hear Vic just basically lay it on the line, very honest about certain players, how they're playing, how they're not performing, if they're not. And then I was in shock. I mean, he made a joke about the joint practice against New England being great because they actually got a lot of reps in, which he said was rare for them, and they've been practicing twice as long these last few weeks than they did in any year under Nick Sirianni. So can you imagine how Vic would have felt about last year's practice or the year before when they would go 40, 45 minutes tops? They're going
44.
an hour and a half to 2 hours now, and Vic still thinks that's not enough.
Were you at the practice with me 2 years ago when it was 44 minutes?
Oh my God. Yeah, it was crazy.
I thought you were there, and we were like, wait a minute. I think we thought it was halfway through.
It felt like an OTA.
Get out of here.
Yeah.
But no,
yeah.
I should mention this. I've been meaning to talk to you about this.
Mm-hmm.
This is going on at every camp that I've gone to. The practices are just about longer than I've seen these teams run them. Yeah, they're I don't know. I'm not sure. I don't know why it's definitely a trend that longer practices this summer. I get it. You've got new head coaches, Antonio Pierce. I get it. Defensive guy. He's longer. I know him a little bit, so I'm not surprised. But yeah, they're pretty much all longer this year. And the Eagles certainly, we said this at the start of camp. The Eagles practices will be longer. We didn't know how long. There's no way we would know that. But
Right.
they're also more physical. This last week they were more physical, and I'm sure Fangio was loving that. He actually talked about that Sunday. And by the way, there were some. I think the threes were tackling a little bit late in practice.
Yeah, I remember saying last year, Adam, at this time last year, saying, look, we know that the Eagles have generally stayed healthy and generally been a good team under this new program of practicing less, hitting less. And I said, but each year it's getting lesser and lesser, less time, less hitting, less physical, less everything. And I said, we can't just keep rubber stamping this and saying, hey, it's good for the team. It's good, because at some point you're going to have gone too far the other way. At some point you're going to have crossed the line. And I know some of our listeners would be like, oh, you guys act like you're experts. It just was not like, you can't just do less and less and less and less and expect the same thing. And I remember saying it this time last year, like, I don't know how much further they can keep going before they learn a hard lesson. Well, sure enough, I mean, unfortunately for them, they lost 6 or 7 last year. They completely tanked, and they looked like a team that was dead DOA for the last 6 weeks of the season. And the response to that has now obviously been getting back to a more physical, more demanding training camp. It's a little bit too bad that they had to learn it that way, that they couldn't have the foresight to say, we can't just keep going less and less, especially when we have new coordinators. Last year, they had a new offensive coordinator, right? They had a new defensive coordinator. Even though the offensive coordinator came from in-house, it was still new. It just felt like that they were giving away too much of what camp is about. And now they've swung back in the opposite direction, which we'll see. I mean, there's always the give and take of that. Now they've got some injuries they have to deal with, but I just don't think that they could have continued on the trajectory they were going.
Yeah, just out of that, you've got not just the coordinators, but all this revised defensive staff overall. Very few guys are back on defense. Then you've got all these new players. You got your draft class, your free agents, new offensive scheme, and Vic Fangio. It's funny, they were running his scheme, but his version of it has some differences. He's kind of hinted at that over a series of weeks. So, yeah, no question about it. But there have been some good stories that emerged from guys we've talked about a couple times here or there, but we're going to update some information today.
There you go. All right. Well, let's start updating the information on the transactions that have happened since we last had a podcast. It's weird. Not weird, but 2 guys who going into camp, we felt because of the thinness at their position would at least have a crack to make the 53, will not now. And both because of injuries. Mekhi Garner, the safety who did play some for them last year out of LSU. This was his second year. He passed through waivers unclaimed and went right to IR after he was waived injured. And then Tyler Hall, the corner who we all thought would who knew 6 weeks ago that Quinyon Mitchell was going to be getting nickelback looks, right? We didn't know that. So obviously, I don't even think the team knew that. Tyler Hall got himself injured in the game and then also went on injured reserve. So those guys will not be on the 53 man.
Yeah, Hall got hurt in the game, so it was a serious enough injury that he won't play for them this season. So, yeah, that gives him a little bit of a light look. Garner moved totally to safety this summer. No more corner for him. Now he's not on the roster, so they certainly have a numbers issue now at defensive back. So they have to get through that as we get through this last week. And remember, they have Minnesota this Saturday at home at 1 Eastern, kind of a weird time on a Saturday.
Yeah.
But they've got to get these backups in there, and they've got to still evaluate them.
Yeah. I was thinking as camp was going on, because the Eagles may have to go deeper at some positions that we didn't realize going into camp, that it would have been hard for both of these guys as currently constituted to make the 53. But either way, injured right now. Gottlieb, I had it down. Ayedzi, I believe, or Ayedzi, Gottlieb Ayedzi, the big offensive tackle, I think from Maryland, right? Isn't that where he went and played in college? Maryland is where he went. He re-signed with the team as the Eagles right now are dealing with some injuries on the offensive line. So he was an undrafted free agent, was with the Eagles, released, and now he's back. So those are the only transactions. Injuries, though, as you mentioned, are really taking their toll, Adam. Why don't you take us through the offensive ones and we'll discuss their relevance.
Okay, so Johnny Wilson got hurt in the game. Got hurt.
The joint practice, right?
Yeah, the joint practice, right. So he didn't play. He has concussion. John Ross got hurt, I believe, on a kickoff return. Or a return was punt or kickoff. I can't remember, but it looked like you could see him. He got dinged. He lowered his head when he walked off the field. Joseph Ngata we were joking at Saturday's practice. He had an ankle injury. He was so not used to getting so much work. He got hurt. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
But he looked great. I mean, he did a
It is
great
a
job.
shame because he had such a nice game against
He
the
did.
Patriots.
He
Yeah.
his hand he caught the ball really well, made some big plays in the game, and I saw him on Saturday. Just he was actually standing right in front of me. So he's got an ankle injury. He's got to get that right now. Tight end, they're really banged up. EJ Jenkins missed the last 2 days of practice with a knee injury. He got hurt in the game. Alberto's been out for a bit with an abdomen injury. Calcaterra is back on Saturday, limited with a shoulder. So he's back practicing. That's a good thing. Matt Hennessy's got a back injury. He's been out for a couple practices.
Not a good thing for him.
Yeah, I'm disappointed that it has not happened for him. I just thought that this would be your Eagles' top backup center guard. That's not going to be the case right now. So he's on the outside looking in.
Right.
We'll see what happens, but it's not looking good for him to make the roster. He's got a back issue. Steen got hurt. Tyler Steen re-injured his ankle during the game. He's getting rehab on it, so we'll see when he's back. And Mekhi Becton, who I noticed he wears a sleeve. It's actually a brace, not a sleeve, on his right leg. He got injured in Sunday's practice. It's a right leg injury. We don't know exactly what it is. And then also, Lane Johnson did not work. They gave him a Veterans Day off on Sunday, but man, their line got taken to woodshed on Sunday.
Yes. So
which
so
you would
na-
expect.
Yeah, and naturally, when Becton walks off the field and they're already starting Fred Johnson at right tackle because Lane's getting a Veterans Day, there was no guesswork anymore, right? Mekhi Becton walks off the field. Steen's injured. You know Brett Toth is going in there because, hey, it's because it's Brett Toth, and he is just the guy now for them. And he got in there and finished off at right guard. And I continue to be amazed because I continue to watch him in the preseason games and think, I don't know, Stelton sees something that the rest of the world doesn't see, and that's fine because Stelton's way better at this than we are. But I don't know. It seems like it's underwhelming, but he keeps getting that shot.
He does have the positional versatility. He could play at least 4 positions, probably 5. So, bottom line is they're down in numbers right now. Max Sharping, hasn't happened for him.
Yeah.
He's a long shot to make the team, and Dylan McMahon. Just taking a look at him up close, man. He is really small. He's a guy that's a center right now, and I don't see him. I don't see him playing guard. He's just got to put mass off on his frame. That's something he's going to have to do. Nick Gates, by the way, watched him over the weekend. He's taken mostly guard reps since he's been there. He's taken a little center, I believe, but mostly guard.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't think he had a chance to make the team, but with all these injuries, you never know, man. The guy's got a lot of experience, but as we were told, for people who work with Nick over the years, he's way better guard than he is at center. And quite frankly, with the injuries right now, they probably would need him at guard.
Yeah, I think so too. Plus, I think they know what he can do at center. Not that they don't know what he can do at guard, but he's played more center than guard, hasn't he? In the end, and
don't know, but I know this for a fact that his tape is way better at guard than center.
At guard, right? So A, they're putting him in a position where he's probably better at, and B, I mean, they've got a kid like Dylan McMahon that they're trying to get reps at center. McMahon is a center probably first and foremost. Cam Jurgens is clearly going to be a center. So I think that obviously it's better for them to get looks at guys who are learning to play guard in the NFL or younger at it, and then just having Nick play the position that he's better at playing. And again, with Toth, it's like, yes, he can play 5 positions. Does he play any of them well? I guess the Eagles think so, and we'll see on Cutdown Day if he's there. But
by the way,
mm-hmm.
Speaking of Cutdown Day,
Yeah.
You notice this little trick the Eagles are doing? Donkwa is not played yet on offense. In the games. He had 2 snaps on special teams. Andrew I kind of knew it was in the back of my head, but I didn't think about it. Andrew pointed it out to me.
Mm-hmm.
I said, don't be stunned if the Eagles play there's a real trick that's been going on for years in the NFL. So in the last week of preseason, teams will cut, let's say you're on Thursday, you're going to make a roster move Thursday. He's got to go through waivers.
Mm-hmm.
You cut him Thursday. Teams still have to play in the preseason, so they're less likely to claim a player because they need a player for their game on Friday or Saturday.
Yep.
And it's a little game that teams play because it's just ridiculous. Donko, we know for a fact, is a guy they really like and want to develop.
Yes.
Well, if you want to do that, you don't not play him in the preseason. It's obvious what they're doing.
Very much so. And by the way, I think Sean Stevens himself only played 3 snaps against the Patriots. I mean, this is the guy who's begging to play at least 15 to 20 snaps. He needs the development, he needs the time. But
Yeah.
the fact that he only played 3, just especially with they've got injury. I mean, they could get him in there somewhere. They don't need to play everybody. As much
Sure,
as
but
they did.
the one that's obvious is Donkwa. I mean, there's just no reason not to play him. But
Right.
I just thought that was funny. Like, okay, but let's put him on special teams for 2 plays. There's no way he can get a good evaluation on that, right? Anyway,
Very funny. All right, so those are our injuries on offense and on defense. You saw it in the game. Gabe Hall kind of pulled up lame at one point, so he was out with a hamstring injury. Moro Jomo with a hip. We'll see how long that is. Now, Oren Burks actually started working on Saturday, and it was limited Sunday, so that's good for him to be able to get back on the field. But we're going to talk about inside linebacker later because I just it's hard to see a pathway at this point for Burks making the team, unless the Eagles surprise us all. But it is good to see him get back in. We've seen Cooper DeJean getting more action as the days go by. Vic Fangio talked about it. He's still on a pitch count. It's kind of funny. I don't know if you saw Vic. He mentioned that the guys downstairs are the ones that came up with a pitch count for Cooper DeJean, which I assume he means the medical and conditioning staff.
I hate pitch count. I hate that term. It's reduced snap count. It's just funny. People, all coaches use that.
Yep.
But just one thing on Burks,
Mm-hmm.
his deal is pretty light. He signed a 1-year, $1.5 million deal, 875,000 fully guaranteed at signing. So it's a cuttable contract. It's not like Devin White's, which the guarantee is much higher. So you're right. I think he's certainly on the outside looking in, and Van Sumeren with his explosiveness is younger. I can't see him keeping 6 inside backers. It's ridiculous. You can't do that,
I
right?
can't. I
Well, they
can't.
kept 7 D tackles last year, so we got to be careful saying that they won't do it. 6 or 7? Did they keep 7?
They kept 7 defensive tackles last year.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. And then really, even after they got rid of Contavious White, they kept 6 for the rest of the year.
Contavious Street.
Contavious Street, right. Yeah, they kept 6 after that. In the secondary, I thought Sidney Brown might be active, after that second preseason game, but he's still not, so he remains on PUP with ACL. I think the expectation is that he still will at some point before the end of camp here come off and start working.
He's itching to go. I've watched him when I've been able to when he's running, and other people have seen him. So it's just a matter of it's when they say it's time for him to do that. Caden Stearns, by the way, with coming back from the major knee issue, patella tendon surgery is worse than ACL. So that's 9 to 12 month rehab, or ACL 6 to 9. That even Vic said it, Fangio said it. It would be at least a week until he starts working.
Mm-hmm.
This to me seems like a situation. Why carry him on the 53? Sure, you could get him in there. It takes the physical. You look at his knee. He could work out with you. It's just I get he passed the physical, but to me, why not work it out with his agent? Put him on the practice squad. Agree to a practice squad contract. Let him work his way back, because how much could he actually contribute coming back from this injury? Really?
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I mean, it's all about the future with him.
Yeah.
CJ Gardner-Johnson came back, started working after the preseason game, has been limited, doing a little bit more. They kind of the word that they gave to reporters when he got hurt was nothing serious, no big deal. But he wound up missing a pretty decent amount of time. And I think the concern for me, Adam, was that it was his shoulder, which is the air, upper body seems to be the sore spot with him. He missed almost all of last year with a pec tear, right? And with the Eagles 2 years ago, I think it was a kidney laceration, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
So, I get concerned with him when he has upper body injuries, no matter what the team might say.
So just so people know, shoulder injuries are very common for safety based on the way they tackle and they lead with their shoulder. So you're always worried about that with contact. And he was out of contact on Saturday. Saturday, no 7-on-7, no team, did very limited stuff, but it was so funny. He was back. He's wearing number 8, but hearing his chirping, was hilarious. It's just something you notice, but you can't not notice if you're there. He was so loud.
Yeah.
Great energy, by the way. Tremendous energy. Gets guys going. I enjoy that. Reminded me, by the way, on Wednesday and Thursday, being with the Seahawks and Titans, is when uh the safety for the Titans, who used to be with the Seahawks.
Jamal Adams.
Yes, Jamal Adams and Witherspoon were jawing at each other. I got to
Mhm.
tell you, it was once I covered this business well over 20 years. I can't remember. I had a more fun time. It was happening right in front of me. We're in the. They were let. They, you have great access to this practice. We were in the back of the end zone watching this. They were both off the field, and it was just funny what they wouldn't stop, and the personnel guys were loving it. They're laughing their ass off because it was like, get your popcorn ready. It was one jab after another, and they're taking shot at each other. One guy's taking a shot saying, "Hey man, you better shut up. Get your offensive line fixed, man. What are you talking about?" I was like, "Didn't you just say that?" I'm like, I couldn't believe it.
That's
And and
awesome.
and Gardner Johnson last summer at Lions practice, he with the Jaguars, Doug Peterson had to stop. He said, "Would you stop already?" Because he couldn't run a place because he wouldn't shut up. It's
I
so
feel like
great.
CJ Gardner Johnson is like when you're a kid and you got that a friend who's computer the friend who goes, "I'm not touching you, I'm not touching you," but puts his
Yeah,
finger right in like right near your eye.
so
"I'm not
annoying,
touching you,"
right?
because you're like, "Don't touch me," and he's like, "I'm not touching you, I'm not touching you." You
You
know,
know
he just
what's so
knows how to
funny?
get right under your skin.
Saturday, it was something like I couldn't quite make out what he was saying,
Uh,
but Big Dom was like, "All right, man, I hear you. I hear you." Yeah, it's just Dom signing autographs, by the way. Whenever he was shaking hands, it's funny. Anyway,
that is amazing. Uh,
but getting back
um,
to this, so yeah, it look, they got Stern can't practice. Brown's not practicing; he's not cleared yet. Gardner
right.
Johnson's not fully doing it. You mentioned DeJean not doing everything yet, but they did more on Sunday. Look, they got and they cut then Hall's out for the season, and so's Mekhi Garner. So they got a numbers problem in the secondary.
They do, and now you know we'll talk about it. You're starting to see Maddox get a lot of run at safety,
Yep.
as they kind of prepare for this life with Quinyon Mitchell potentially being the starting nickel when the season opens. So we'll get to that too.
Yeah.
A lot to talk about there. But those are the injuries, and we'll pause real quick to hear a word from our friends at Sky Motor Car. I'm sorry. We'll pause real quick to hear a word from our friends at Ocean Casino Resort in Atlantic City.
Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
All right, we've also been telling you about our Patreon relaunch. I think by next podcast, we'll be able to tell you who is going to be our first Ask an Eagle live stream, our mystery former Eagle who's going to come apart and be a part of our live stream that you personally get to ask questions to and get answers from. We're a 3-tier platform now, and people who have already we've gotten great feedback from our new Patreon members on the weekly live streams with myself, Adam, and Andrew DeCecco, and also the great stuff we're going to have this season with Greg Cosell and all the extra content. So again, that's patreon.com/inside the birds, the Discord chats, the intel we've been on during the preseason games, talking to our Discord community, giving our intel that we're getting at the moment and just our observations.
Oh, yeah. The one thing I would add is also if you're listening to us right now, Monday morning, you could have got this show Sunday night. If you're what is it tier 2 and tier 3? What's the
Yeah, so if you're a tier 2 or tier 3 member, you get it immediately uploaded and with 0 ads.
There you
So
go,
that's a big
man.
part
That
to it.
is another great part of it.
All right, let's talk about the offense here, Adam. As we kind of, again, as the calendar ticks toward this cutdown day, there is nothing more Philadelphian, right, than the reaction to Tanner McKee after the second preseason game where he should be the number 2 quarterback. Kenny Pickett stinks. Tanner McKee season, SZM, blah, blah, blah. And then on Sunday, Tanner goes out and throws 2 picks and doesn't play, perform very well. You can read all about it in Andrew DeCecco's observations on InsideTheBirds.com. But I think everyone needs to remember a couple of things, and you can go into this more. The contract that Kenny Pickett has here, the experience Kenny Pickett brings as a backup quarterback, and the fact that Kenny Pickett also runs mostly with the second team. He'll get some first team reps here and there, but like Tanner McKee, and we're excited about the guy. I'm listen, that preseason game, he was very impressive. And he's always been impressive when it counts in the preseason games for him when it counts. But he's always also working with third stringers and occasionally with the second stringers. We have never seen what Tanner McKee looks like on the first team, like with the pressure on him. I think when you want to all of a sudden vault him over Kenny Pickett, you're putting the cart before the horse a little bit.
Yeah, I think let's go to Pickett first. Pickett's got to look the way his playing style is. He doesn't really drive the football downfield. He's more of a touch passer. But last summer with the Steelers, I saw it with my own eyes. I was there twice and talking to their people. He had an exceptional offseason last year. The light went on a little bit in Matt Canada's offense. His arm strength improved. He improved his upper body strength by lifting weights and so forth. And then, once he got into the regular season, he was their starting quarterback. The processing wasn't great. He wasn't driving the ball at all, and his timing was off, jittery. He just didn't have it. And I think when we see this in practice every once in a while, I know this is a new offense. That's natural. This is totally different than Matt Canada's offense. So there are going to be some timing issues. Sometimes he's not sure what he's looking at. But when he squares up and he sees it, he hits it. I mean, he's on time. But understand something. McKee's got a much better arm. Mm-hmm. I mean, you don't have to watch more than 30 seconds to see the difference. The key for Kenny is timing. He could get it there one timing. When he sees it correctly, when he feels it, he gets it there, and he looks like a competent quarterback. The problem in the preseason so far is protection's so bad. He's taken a ton of sacks. I think 6, right?
Yes. Yeah. And the protection's bad, and the separation has not been great either.
Right. And you look at who he's playing with. He's not playing with the stars. So,
right.
And then, but I would tell you, I did ask this question to a coach on my tour. It's not normal to give the third string quarterback second team reps the way that they're doing it. They're doing it clearly because McKee's earned them.
Yes.
And that's why they're doing it, but it's not normal based on what
Right. We mentioned that on the last pod that, he's getting second team reps because he's not a camp body. He's not a camp arm. He's a guy who they really like and want to develop. And what I meant by saying that he's not working with the first teamers, so it's not a great judge. I mean, yes, potentially if Tanner McKee was working with first or second teamers, that could bring out the better. But my point is, when he does really well, he's doing it against guys in the second half of a preseason game who are generally not going to be on NFL rosters. Remember, Kenny Pickett was out there in game 1 throwing against Nate Wiggins, a first-round pick for the Baltimore Ravens. So that's why I think you can see the disparity there. But I do think that there's a lot of good things that we've seen with Tanner McKee. I think next year at this time will be a really interesting conversation about his ability to win the backup job. Perhaps we'll have to see how this year goes in general. But yeah, Tanner probably has the strongest arm of all 3 of the quarterbacks. We said the same thing about Jalen Hurts. It's when he sets his feet, he can get it anywhere at any time when he has the right timing. But the arm strength itself maybe doesn't compare to some of the stronger arms in the league, but McKee clearly has one.
Yeah, I'd say one thing about McKee, who's over 6'5", his mobility is better than it was last year. There's no question about it. He's not, he's not fleet of foot, but he's moving a lot better. That was the first thing I saw in OTAs, and it's continued in training camp. And this has been a good story. The guy didn't have a great camp last summer, but those 2 games were phenomenal in the preseason. And you mentioned Baltimore. That was really because you understand something, folks. Every team gets to see that tape. They can't see your practice tape. They can't see joint practice tape. They're not allowed. That's a gentleman's agreement. You can't share it with another team, but you sure as heck could watch it. You go watch the preseason tape, and the tape is really good with him throwing it against threes. I get that, but it is what it is. You can't teach arm strength, and he certainly has it.
Yeah. On to running back, Adam. I mean, Kenny Gainwell. I know there was some good showings from the rookie Will Shipley early on, and there still is.
Still doing well.
He's doing well. He's doing well as an offensive player. He shows you the juice that he has, and if they can get this guy a few screens, I think that work and are blocked up well. He can probably give you even a little bit more than Boston Scott gave you as a number 3 running back. But Kenny Gainwell has had a nice camp. His pass protection's better. I think that's going to be a big separation part. Will Shipley still has to come. He did do a nice job on a blitz pickup. I can't remember if that was the first preseason game or the last one, but I know in camp he struggled with that at the times.
It was the first one. By the way, that the 2nd and 22 screen was really nice. He made the unblocked defender, Mr. Kim, right at him. And then right when he got past them, he was able to get 20 yards back. Even the Patriots announcer said that was a well-designed play. Of course, the Patriots were backed off. One guy leaked through, and Shipley missed, made it, the guy missed. But Ty Davis Price has really rebounded after a tough couple weeks of dropping the ball in practice.
Yeah.
Kendall Milton's looked better. Lou Nichols has had his time in the sun.
Yep.
The only question is, do they keep 4 backs? It's going to be hard because they have so many good defensive backs. And we'll get to defense later, and that's what's going to make it tougher. But Shipley definitely, and we've seen this now since the spring, he just has more juice than Gainwell, but Gainwell's ahead, clearly because of the pass protection, some things he does better. Another thing is also Gainwell's a pretty good true yards back, which we didn't know when they drafted him, but that's been sort of his calling card, is short yards.
So Ty Davis Price is someone I'm really interested in because it's hard to see his pathway to the 53. I hope that they can bring him back on the practice squad. He had a nice run, Adam, up the middle on a specific run design. If you recall, last time you and I were on, I told you about at LSU how they started using more pulling guards and trapping linemen to get him sprung, and then he exploded there. If you saw if he had a run of, I think, 11 or 12 yards
13
against 13 yards, right? That was a tackle trap. I believe it was Darian Kennard at left tackle at that point, or maybe Fred Johnson, who pulled and came straight up the middle, covered up the linebacker, and Price did exactly what he's known for. He was very patient. He allowed the blocking pattern to develop and just followed a big guy right up the middle, and was able to then show his juice on that once he got to the second level to pick up extra yards. I think he's an interesting runner, and I hope that he still can, be with the team in some part, because the Eagles they have huge offensive linemen, and they will pull these guys and they'll trap. It's not 70% of what they do, but Ty Davis Price is going to play 70% of the time. But if you want to get him in at some point, let's say you have a couple of injuries, right? And you want to call him up from your practice squad, and you'll add 4 or 5 of these type of runs, then you might see some good production out of him. So I hope he still is with the team in some form or fashion. I think he's got a little juice there.
69-man roster. And that's what you're 53 plus 16. That we're going to be talking about this a lot the next couple of weeks.
Yep.
He's just over 6 feet, around 220. He's got good size. He's really a zone runner. He was drafted for that exclusively, really coming out of LSU, that fit in the Niners outside zone. Although you're funny, you said inside zone, inside zone, inside zone the first game, wasn't it? A ton of them.
Oh yeah, it's just
you're funny, yeah. You were like inside. You were calling it out.
But I think, David, based on what I saw at LSU, read, and then I went and watched the tape, he can run inside if you're trapping a tackle, which is not zone. It's more like gap, but it's still, I don't know. I mean, there's a little bit of a nebulous there but either way, the way with his patient runs and his one cut style, this offensive line could do some really good things for him.
This guy's perfect to be the 4th back in the practice squad.
Yeah, 100%. Yep. And you know what? I think they've kept 2 in the pad. They want to keep Lou Nichols too, because they like what they've seen from him. They can, because he's been a hard runner. He's been a tough physical runner. They can put him on the practice squad too. Wide receiver. Listen, I don't know what to say. Paris Campbell couldn't stay healthy. Then he's back. He didn't play in the game, so you didn't really get. And then Johnny Wilson having a concussion sort of makes it tough to get even more of an evaluation of him. Britton Covey's not done well. Had a good camp. Had another good practice, I think, on Saturday or Sunday. But I still struggle to see him as your full-time slot, unless he's like a Cole Beasley type. Maybe. Did Cole Beasley, was he their full-time slot when he was in
Yes.
Dallas?
Oh yeah, in Dallas.
But did they play? They played more 12 personnel though, so he wasn't always on the field. Right?
No. Before Gallup got hurt, Gallup was the 2 and Beasley was the slot.
Right. Yeah. So maybe I don't know. I guess I'd have to just see it and to feel really comfortable with it.
Well, let's put it this way: Covey has been their best backup receiver in camp. I mean, he's
definitely
been phenomenal. Now they're real light. You mentioned, because with Ngata hurt, Wilson hurt, Ross hurt. I would think they wouldn't play Covey in the final preseason game because he's got to be the punt returner too. So no, you got to have at least 5 guys to address.
Yeah.
So right now your healthy backups are Griffin Hebert, Austin Watkins, Jacob Harris, Anais Smith, and Covey. That's it. Oh, I'm sorry. Campbell's he's fine. He looked pretty good in Saturday's practice watching him.
Mm-hmm.
Coming off the groin injury. But man, that's pretty light for a preseason game. They're going to have to they may have to sign. They've done that before. They've signed a guy just for the last preseason game. I've seen that before.
Yeah, I'm looking at the numbers here, Adam, and AJ Brown, Devontae Smith are definitely your top two, obviously. Britton Covey's going to make it 3. Johnny Wilson's going to make it 4. Anaya Smith is a draft pick. He's going to make it 5. You may have to stop right there, my friend.
Yeah,
And
I don't see
if they're going to put somebody on the practice squad to play for 3 weeks until like maybe Smith starts, and Smith's getting
Jacob
better.
Harris.
Anais,
Jacob
maybe
Harris is a guy.
Harris. Thank you. That was just about to say it would be.
Forgot
Jacob
about
Harris.
him. My bad. He's flashed. He definitely flashes. His
Mhm.
team's value.
Yep.
Super important. That's always a discussion with front offices and coaches when they have their final personnel meetings. Okay, where are we at? They set the depth chart. When it's between two players, it's team's value. That's the dividing line.
Right. If you just did it on production, you might say Ngata, but he's not I don't think he's a teams guy. So
He played specials. I saw him doing it. Coverage.
yeah, but it's not like something he's like superior
He's
at.
not
Whereas-
explosive. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I don't know. I do think. I mean, again, 69 man. You can probably get 2 wide receivers at least. You'll probably have more. So I would say Harris and Ngata are the likeliest. I just don't know that there's a pathway for either of them making the 53 because you basically have to keep Wilson, Johnny Wilson, and Anaya Smith.
Yep.
So, but I don't think that there's a warrant for keeping more than 5 receivers either out of that crew. So
No, I agree.
So wait, Paris Campbell does become an X factor here. Do they just say we just need a reliable veteran? We know he was hurt. We know he could be hurt, and we put him on as the 6th receiver. I don't know. We'll see.
Well, that's a discussion with that's on your point. That's a discussion with the agent. If they're worried about it, you just do a practice squad agreement. Hey, would you be willing to go to the practice squad?
Right.
It's and then you only keep 5, and that's been the thing now with clubs is that they're really judicious with their roster. Like that's why you have this 60-man practice squad now. If it was the old rules where you only had like 8 or 10 players, that's a different story. Then it makes it even harder. But now that you get a veterans on the practice squad, that's a great advantage.
Yeah, and I agree. I think that's the likeliest route for Paris Campbell and the Eagles will have leverage because at cutdown day, there's going to be some veteran wide receivers who've got slot experience who can come in and help the team. So it's not like if they lose him, it's the worst thing in the world.
Well, but they need more in slot. They need a backup.
They do, but I'm saying they'll be able to sign somebody.
Someone who can play multiple positions.
Right.
X, your Z is your move position. That's Devontae's and Brown's. They need. This has just been. I didn't think it would be this bad. I was expecting somebody to step up. I mean, Wilson's done okay, nice job, but he's not explosive.
Right.
And I know they've cross-trained him. He's just not natural in some things that they're asking him to do. And Ross got hurt. He hasn't been super impressive. Covey's been great at what they've asked him to do. And by the way, he's played some Z. Jacob Harris has done some nice things, but no one's kind of like taken hold other than Covey. So.
True. All right. Tight ends. I mean, look, it's you might have hit this on the head. I think you even in your first when we did a 53-man roster projection, too early one in May. I think you had the Eagles only keeping 2 tight ends. You might be right here. And
of course, I had Uzama over Calcaterra. I got that wrong.
Yeah. Now Calcaterra with the shoulder.
He's back.
Can you rely? I know he's back, but can you rely on him? I mean, I don't know if it warrants again keeping 3. Although, if you're keeping Dallas Goedert, man, EJ Jenkins he got hurt too, and I was like, wow. I was watching the preseason game, and I'm like, they're running out of 11. He's blocking a little bit here. And then we didn't just get to see because he caught a ball and he came up weird and then it winds up he's got hurt. I don't know. At this point, I can't tell you who the number 2 is, but the contract says it's going to be Uzama.
Well, Calcaterra is clearly ahead of him, but
right. That doesn't mean but go ahead.
But no, what you can do is something that I've been feeling for a couple of weeks. Well, actually, Uzama's not making very much money, just under 1.4 million. 717,000 fully guaranteed. So about half of his contract's fully guaranteed, but that's like next to nothing.
Yeah,
he just made
cuttable. Yeah,
very cuttable. But that's where this is to me a layup. Hey, say to the agent, listen, we want to keep him, but not on the 53.
Right.
Because you want to be on the 16-man practice squad, be part of the 69-man roster. because right now it's they got you got the challenge at inside backer about how many to keep.
Mm-hmm.
They've got a lot of decisions to make in the secondary plus specials. Edge rusher group, which we'll get into, is really going to be tough because Patrick Johnson, to me, has played himself on the roster. I don't think there's any question he's going to be here in the fall. So they got some tough decisions here, and again, it's a couple of them because for a good reason, where guys have kind of come on, particularly on defense.
All right, on the offensive line, Adam, this one is I feel like some clarity coming into play here, but still a lot of uncertainty. I mean, you obviously have your starting five of Lane and Jordan Mailata, right? And Juergens. And at this point, Mekhi Becton's the right guard. I don't even think that's arguable at this point, unless
Yep.
Tyler Steen has some amazing last week and a half, but he just hasn't stayed healthy enough to.
No,
prove
it's pretty much a lock for Becton. If Becton's right leg is okay, yeah, he'll be
Right.
starting week 1. The thing is, you don't go all summer, all training camp, and then make a decision 1 week before. Well, the other problem is Steen's hurt. He's hurt his ankle, and that really opened the door, quite frankly.
Right.
It was close, and then Steen. It was like Becton sort of was pulling ahead, and then Steen got hurt. And that kind of did it. So they just got to get Steen's ankle right. It's a shame. He's done some good things. It's too bad, you know.
Yeah, but he's going to be on the team because second year. So
You're not
that's
going anywhere.
Sixth guy right there.
Yeah.
You're 7. I mean, it looks like Trevor Keegan's going to wind up being the young Sua Opeta of this team, a guy who only plays one position but makes it because he plays that one position and they drafted him. So he plays only left guard. I mean, they could have 7 injuries at right guard apparently, and they're not going to move him over there. So he's going to be on it. Do you get the feeling McMahon's going to be on it because he's a draft pick and he's backup center?
Yeah,
Man, this is so rough because I mean that just Steen, Keegan, and McMahon are your top 3. I don't want to say top 3, but are 3 backups right now, and none of them have like real NFL experience here.
Well, the developmental guys, you don't want to waive them. That's the only way they can get to the practice squad. Waive them. Keegan's definitely been here. He's been the second team left guard, all summer. So,
but how do you put, to your point though? How do you put Dankwa,
yeah,
and take up a spot there among all these other young kids who are taking up a 53?
Well, no. I mean, I said earlier.
You think they want to waive him and put him on?
Of course, that's why they have him. They're not going to give him good tape.
Right.
They're not going to let him get good tape. That's why they have him.
That makes sense. That makes sense. So that still gives us 2 spots here between Kennard, Hennessy. I don't think Hennessy is making it at this point, but Kennard, Hennessy, Fred Johnson.
Fred's on it. He's a backup left.
He should be, but do you think they do the whole thing where they waive him and try to bring him back under? Okay,
no, he's not waived. He's a vested veteran. He can't be waived. Number 1, number 2. He's been a backup left tackle all summer. So
right. I always confuse. I thought that they changed it so everybody who's cut down is typically waived, but you're right. So Fred Johnson's going to be on it. That'll be 9, and then you're down to Kennard, Sharping, Hennessy, and Gates, and I feel like I'm still missing somebody.
Well, okay, so we've got, before we move on here, so Johnson's 6, Keegan's 7, Becton's 8.
No, Becton, you mean Steen is 8.
Oh, Steen is 8, yeah, again, yeah.
And McMahon is 9.
Oh, Toth.
Oh, Toth, you're right. So now Kennard doesn't make it?
They're going to keep.
I mean, Lane Johnson was singing this guy's praises. I thought he played well in the preseason game. He plays guard and tackle.
Who we talk about?
Kennard.
Oh, Kennard. Yeah. Boy, he started again at right tackle.
I just, wow. I mean, I honestly think Brett Toth is going to get claimed by somebody.
No, he can't be claimed. He's vested.
I'm sorry, signed by somebody. I
agree with you, man. I totally agree. But this has been it's positional versatility. He's the only guy who could play like 5 positions, at least 4, maybe even 5.
So okay, you're right. And given this circumstance, if we say Hennessy's not making it,
yep,
and Juergens gets hurt, who's playing center?
Brett Toth.
I'm just gonna put out the PSA right now, as I've done in the past, and it just so happens to be Brett Toth again. It could be anybody, but if Cam Juergens gets hurt, the Eagles are in a lot of trouble. I don't trust McMahon right now, and I haven't seen it from Brett Toth to say I think this offensive line can function really well if he had to start center. I've been wrong before though.
It looks like they're going to keep 10. Now again, if Nick Gates let's assume he plays a lot in the preseason game, right?
Mm-hmm.
Look, he's a veteran who just got paid. I mean, he did very well. His last year with the Giants to get a big contract with the Commanders. They didn't want him, the new staff,
Right.
but the guy's got a lot of starting experience. He could play two positions, so he's got value.
Yeah, it would be wonderful if they could bring him onto the practice squad.
Yeah,
It would be wonderful.
you can only have so many veterans on the practice squad by rule, but they've got some decisions. Max Sharping, man, I'm disappointed. I really thought he would push. He's not pushed.
Yeah, and I think that it's fair to be disappointed with Hennessy too. I mean, young kid, still
Yeah.
Stoutland, you thought might be able to get through to him and get him developed there, but yeah, he's not. As we're looking at it right now, and again, this is the one spot where the way Stoutland views it might be different than even people on the team, right? So there could be a table bang for somebody that we're ripping right now, and
Well,
he might wind up on the team. So
2 years ago,
like Brett Toth,
Brett Toth, yes.
yeah.
Josh Sills, who's still with
Perfect
the Colts,
example.
by the way. Yeah, Josh Sills. I think we might have talked about him passing once the whole summer.
Right.
And then when we found out he was going to make him, like, you can't be Josh Sills. And then he had his off the field issue. But, geez, yeah, you make a great point because you never really know. He doesn't always see it like their personnel staff does. So, but he's the one who's coaching him, and his voice carries a lot of weight.
All right, Adam, before we go on, I just want to remind everybody that the college football season right around the corner, and not just that, of course, the NFL season, as we're discussing, is around the corner. And now that the Phillies are hot again, we can all look forward to going to playoff games at the ballpark. And you can make all that happen using the Game Time app. It is such a great ticket app, the best one we have ever used. And they have a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting the tickets to see your favorite teams play even easier. It filters out the fluff to show you only the incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. In fact, I just used this, Adam. I took my wife for her birthday, not for a sporting event, but to see a Boys to Men concert in Atlantic City. And like most people, I knew for her birthday, I wanted to get her not just like nosebleed seats. I wanted a certain zone, and I had a certain budget to spend on it. And that's what was great about using the Game Time app. You don't have to go through every single seat and figure out what's the price here, what's the price there. They have it all divided by zone and region of the venue. And it was just an awesome experience. I mean, these are just super deals you're not going to get on any other ticketing app. And for me, the convenience of it, I was able to get these tickets, exactly find the place I wanted within probably took me less than 5 minutes, which is hard these days because it's, you go on other apps and you're going running through circles. And we've talked about not only the super deal, but the zone deal, the flash deals, the panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy, and of course, the lowest price guaranteed. You get credited 110% of the difference if you can find a better ticket elsewhere. That is the Game Time guarantee. And you're covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. So you can take the guesswork out of buying tickets to sporting events, concerts, theater shows, comedy acts by downloading the Game Time app, create an account, and use codes BIRDS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code BIRDS, BIRDS, for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, defense, Adam. And also another interesting spot to talk about. Moro Jomo continues. He's hurt with the hip, but had a good enough camp. We know he's on the team. He's going to probably fight for some playing time when the season starts. But Thomas Booker has really come on as of late, and given the depth there. Now, here's the thing about Booker, though. What do the Eagles want and need in their backup interior defensive line? We know Carter and Davis and Williams are the three starters.
Yep.
We know Jomo can come in and play that kind of pass rushing, three technique, 4-eye type spot, right? Marlon Tuipulotu and Vic Fangio was really good about this. He answered a question I've had a long time. I've always said, why don't they have a backup nose? And he says, in this league, if you're backup, you can't just have a backup nose. Backup's got to be able to play multiple spots. That makes sense. So that's why Tuipulotu can play the nose, can move over, play the other interior lines too. That's 5 guys, Adam.
Yeah, I'm putting Booker.
If Booker is 6, I'm just wondering, does PJ Mustafer, has he played well enough to push Tuipulotu for that backup nose hybrid spot.
I doubt that. I'm going to put 6. If we had to make a prediction right now, I'd put 6 on the roster. Look, they kept 7 for goodness sake last year.
Yes.
No, you can't put it. It was just so funny to hear when guys from other teams say, "What is Howie doing keeping 7 D tackles? What sense does that make?" Then what? 2 weeks later, they trade Contavious Street to the Falcons. But look, they kept 7 last year. Why would they not keep 6? And Booker, by the way, Ojomo's the top backup D tackle. That's been a lock City, USA, the entire camp. He's their top backup. Now, Gabe Hall, I can't see making it. He hadn't done enough. But Booker has really come on. In fact, Vic talked about that, and he's a multi-position player. So when the backup, he can play nose. He's a backup 5 or 7 technique. A little bit of the 4-eye. So yeah, he's done a good job. A good story. And don't forget, he was drafted by the Texans in the 5th round 2 years ago.
Yeah. It wasn't like he was a rookie free agent or anything. He was drafted. Yeah. So no, good to see him have a good camp. I really wonder if his if Clint Hurt has had like a really good positive impact on him, because he sort of kind of came out of nowhere and has played really well.
He's got an athletic build. He's out of Stanford, by the way, for an interior lineman. It's been a nice story. It's a good find for them. In fact, the Texans cut him. He passed their waivers unclaimed. Eagles signed him to their practice squad. Actually, before he was cut before the initial 53 by the Texans. And good for the Eagles. He spent the entire season on the practice squad, and here you go. He's got a real shot to make it.
All right, let's talk about the edges, because here's where the Eagles really run into a good problem to have: too much talent and numbers game. Remember, we've talked about other areas they're going to have to go heavy. So Josh Sweat has really come on. Looks good. All intel is that he looks healthy and spry and fine. And I guess when you change Lane Johnson to Fred Johnson in practice, all of a sudden Sweat goes off for a bunch of sacks.
Yeah, that had a lot to do with it.
Yeah.
But I just want to say very quietly, he's had a good camp. Just haven't talked about him enough.
Right.
The key is that he's healthy. And there were some knocks on him from game tape that he was going for sacks, and he knew that the guaranteed money in his contract was up, and whatever. A lot of guys were not playing with enough discipline last season. That was just a knock it was all from tape. But bottom line is he's had a good camp. He's solid. He's healthy. He's only 27, incredibly, but drafted in 2018.
So you've got Sweat, Bryce Huff, Nolan Smith, Brandon Graham, 4 right there that are on the team. Jalen Hunt's a 3rd-round pick. He's making the team as a 5th.
A really good kid. By the way, he is. We've talked about him now for 3 or 4 weeks. Almost every practice he flashes. I'll give you this one. This is interesting. I got this from being on the road with one of a team last week. The reason why he's not been a detriment in coverage is because of his safety acumen. So he understands. There's just, yes, he's new to he struggles a little bit with technique because he's new to edge rushing, but the safety stuff in his background helps him in zone drops. He's got a working idea on how to do it, where a guy who's new to the position probably wouldn't, but he does because he came from safety, and he's not a zero in coverage, folks. He's instinctive. He's very smart. Yes, he went to Cornell and transferred. Is it Houston Baptist? Was that the school?
Well, it's Houston Christian when he got there. Yeah.
Right. They changed the name. Right. But
or no, do I have that backwards? You might be right. It might have been Houston Christian first, then Houston Baptist.
Yes, it was Baptist, not Christian. Anyway, he had the late growth spurt, 19 years old. He's really been a good story development. And the only question here is now, where we didn't think he'd get on the field much this season. We're going to mend that. He's put himself on the radar here. And quite frankly, because again, I know Huff is a starter, $17 million a year. His contract tells you he's got to be starting. Nolan Smith, flash, but that sack he had was great, by the way. He got chipped, and he didn't give up, and he had a great sack against New England. He had a good week, I was told. So we'll see how this manifests in the season. But look, he barely played last season on defense. His first game was not great against Baltimore. So we'll see how consistent he could be. But you can't teach size, and Hunt is probably the most explosive edge rusher they have. He's just new to the position.
Right.
He's got a lot to learn, but he has played himself into something interesting this season.
And maybe of all the names at this group who have improved the most, and because of his special teams acumen, he is going to make the 53, barring something unforeseen. Patrick Johnson has, and which we said it going into camp. It's going to be Patrick Johnson versus Julian Okwara versus Terrell, somebody for that last edge rusher spot that's really a special teamer. Well, not only has Patrick Johnson always been a good core special teamer, but he's really he's transformed his body. Andrew DeCecco has written about it. He's shown good hand usage. The feedback I got was violent hands all of a sudden from someone who's been watching him play. So that's a 6 guy right there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
I know it's a lot. I know.
That's a lot. And you're not going to play 6 edge rushers. Most teams play 4 tops. The way Jalen Hunt is improving, like you mentioned, and Andrew DeCecco, I give him props. He's written about it. Hunt is playing himself not just as a special teamer, but into some kind of rotation here. Man, like, is there a surprise move here?
You know, it's so funny. I was thinking as you were saying that,
if there was, it would be Josh Sweat,
yeah,
right? But you're not going to do. I don't know, like because Josh Sweat's now got a 1-year, $10 million deal.
Yeah,
I think it's a guaranteed.
It's fully guaranteed.
Yeah, but nobody would like you. Whereas we say no team would take that on. There's a team that needs an edge rusher that would be fine paying $10 million for an edge rusher. I just wonder if Josh Sweat is someone who you got to think about now as saying if the Eagles get a good offer, seeing what they value.
I don't see the reason. Here's the thing. Here's why I don't see a trade for at least for him. Nolan Smith hasn't proven a thing. Patrick Johnson is a 15 snaps a game guy on defense. BG's 36 years old, and Hunt, has been a nice story, but you don't have Sweat, and Sweat has got a positional versatility. He can play with his hand down, he can stand up. He's healthy, really good run defender, by the way. I hear you. I was thinking in the back of my mind, man, you're going to keep 6 as anyone expendable by trade. I just can't see Sweat being traded. I just can't.
This is the time of the year where I start to try to figure that out, like the surprise move. There's just no way it's going to be BG. Right? They're not cutting.
Of course.
So really, Sweat is the only one that would qualify, and that's why I thought about it. But I'd be stunned. It's hard to see it happening.
Yeah, I just don't see it.
Yeah, but there is always a surprise.
Sure,
so it's just something to keep an eye out for. We're not predicting that, just kind of trying to analyze. Which brings us to the next spot, inside linebacker, where again, this is why we analyze this, right? Because you realize they start to get into a numbers problem if you have to keep too many players at a position you don't ordinarily keep a lot of players at. For example, we already just said probably 6 interior defensive linemen, right? And then we just said 6 edge rushes. So if you're keeping 25 players on defense, well, that 12 right there on the front line. And as we get to inside linebacker here, it looks like they're going to have to keep 5. Which is a lot. You don't even play. You play 2 at most.
I know we're gonna have to when we do our final 53 next Sunday. Maybe it would be for actually next month, the week from Monday's show. We're gonna have to get serious and start cutting. We're gonna have to cut it down more. But it's hard. I mean, that's what I said at the start of the show. It's gonna be hard.
Right. Well, just for perspective, Adam, if you keep 6 interior linemen, right, and 6 edge rushers, as we just said, 12, and then 5 inside linebacker, you're already at 17. That gives you 8 for the secondary. That's a thin secondary.
It's too light. I know. Well, no, but that's what Maddox could play multiple positions. But we'll get that in a minute. All right, so let's get through this. So
go ahead.
We should tell you, Dean, and it could be someone said to me maybe the practice of the link set him straight. Where he didn't practice well, because ever since then he's been on the uptick. Dean is playing really well right now. He's absolutely pushing Zach Bond. So we all thought Dean would start over Bond, and then it didn't look very good the first couple of weeks. But Dean has gotten the memo. Let's pick it up, and he's doing well. Trot Jr.'s come on here. Those are it's really interesting. I mean, it's very clear they're going to play 4 guys right now, or 4 guys who played into it: Bond, White, Dean, and Trotter. Now Burks is just back, and Van Sumeren, who's gotten work with the 2s. He's a supreme special teams player. He's just their fastest linebacker.
Yeah, I don't think that they're going to cut him, Adam.
Well, I mean, 6?
5. Wait. Trot, Dean, Bond.
Or 5. I'm sorry, 5.
White, and BVS would be 5.
And Burks he's gonna have to really pick it up here. Be on there again. This to me is a practice squad, Nick Morrow type deal to me. If you don't feel like he should be on the roster because he hasn't shown enough, and there's Brandon Smith, who I've watched on special teams. He's kind of high hip, the way his body type. He's really tall. Didn't you tell us at Penn State they played in multiple positions, something like that?
I think what I said is they played him as a linebacker, but when you watched him play, it looked like he was out of position a lot, and they would
Yeah.
blitz him at times. I think just because he was such a great athlete. But there were just, he didn't stand out to me as being really strong in his run fits and his zone drops and things like that.
Yeah, and he was only with the Panthers for 1 year. That's a third rounder. So that's it. I mean, yeah, I would agree with 5 there. Van Sumeren, I just don't see them exposing him to waivers because of his special teams, and plus he's a guy you want to develop. He's the kind of guy you'd hate to have been claimed by another team.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, some of the personnel guys used to work for the Eagles the last couple of years, or who with other teams, they know that the kid's got developmental skill. That's the risk you run with some of your guys who've got jobs elsewhere, and they know with relationships in the building, they know that Van Sumeren's a pretty interesting player who's really starting to develop a little bit.
Absolutely. All right, so then we get to our secondary. Before we do that, we'll stop and hear a word from our friends at Sky Motor Cars.
Sky Motor Cars in Westchester is a different sort of dealership. All it takes is one look at their Highline pre-owned vehicles that people all over the country want and need. Owner Brett Schiller, make sure you don't spend a dime of your money before you purchase the car. Sky Motor Cars allows you to make all the decisions regarding your next vehicle. At Sky Motor Cars, you never have to spend more than necessary. Visit SkyMotorCars.com today or call 610-918-7225.
And if you hop into Sky Motor Cars out there in Westchester, PA, make sure you tell them Adam and Geoff sent you. You'll get a great deal. If you can't make it in, go to SkyMotorCars.com. All right, so now that we've decided that we already have 17 players on defense before we get to the secondary, 8 players left. But I mean, we're not doing that stuff now. But
Yeah.
the point is, it's a tight race here. Obviously, Quinyon Mitchell has helped himself a lot by being able to play nickel. Honestly, that's helped Isaiah Rodgers the most because it's given Isaiah a really good chance to showcase himself outside. I'm very interested to see as the quote unquote pitch count gets bigger for Cooper DeJean, who is working at nickel, and Vic Fangio confirmed this. We had reported when they drafted him and going into training camp that the Eagles really saw him as an outside cornerback.
Yep.
Kept saying that. You were big on that. Vic said, we drafted him as a cornerback, but right now we're playing at nickel because that's our best combination, and we're seeing what he's got.
And you remember we also said that other teams don't agree with the Eagles.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's right. Other teams thought safety, nickel. I mean, everywhere. Yeah.
Yeah, this safety. I don't know of a team that you and I talked to, you and I exchanged notes, that sees him as an outside corner for the long term. I didn't poll 32 teams, but from combined, we probably had 15 teams telling us. And no one said that he would be an outside corner for the long term, but the Eagles are hell-bent on it. As I said before, folks, if he could be an outside corner for the totality of his career, man, that would save them draft picks, wasting draft picks on first or second round corners, even third round. Because if you could just have DeJean and Mitchell be your outside corners for the future, boy, that would be great.
It would be fantastic. Absolutely. So what does this mean for Avonte Maddox? I mean, it's clearly your nickels right now are Quinyon Mitchell, and it may start out that he's outside in base and moves inside to nickel, and Rodgers comes in for the outside. Or if Cooper's ready, then maybe Quinyon stays in the outside and Cooper plays the nickel. But we're seeing a lot of Avonte Maddox at safety, and with the thinness there, Adamus, and of course the injury proneness of CJ Gardner-Johnson, just like all this stuff, what Quinyon's doing is helping Isaiah Rodgers. It might also be helping Avonte Maddox, the safety situation, because he can play there and has been practicing there more.
Yeah. So, yeah, I see right now, because Sidney Brown, we don't know for sure if he'll be ready for week 1. See, right now he's the third safety. He's, to me, in Bradbury, obviously he had a couple bad plays he'd like to have back. Maddox right now would be the top backup safety. You mentioned, and don't forget, Blankenship had a concussion issue, had a couple. He's had some injury issues. So, and Maddox has got that great positional versatility. I have him on the team. He'll make $2 million this season. $875,000 fully guaranteed on his 1-year deal. And then the other safety,
Tristan
McCollum.
I mean, for specialty, first of all, I think Tristan's actually played fairly well when given a chance. Again, it's against third teamers, but he had experience last year. He is a core special teamer. That's usually a giveaway for guys that they want. So you keep, that would be 4 safeties, and
that's it.
4 safeties. And if you only kept 4 corners, Mitchell,
well,
here's
the question.
Yeah, that's tough.
If Brown is on the roster, McCollum can't be. You can't keep 5 safeties. I mean, you just can't.
If Brown, which Brown? Sidney Brown?
Sidney Brown, if he's not on PUP to start the season, because
I agree with you.
yeah.
I agree with you. And if he
So-
is, yeah, you're right. That's
So-
tough. You can't keep 5 safeties.
Right now, let's close this. All right, so
Mhm.
your outside corners, because Fangio, we have to do it like Vic wants it. Your
Right.
cornerbacks, not your nickels, your corners
Uh-huh.
are Slay, Mitchell, Rogers, Ringo. There's your 4. Where are you playing DeJean?
You got to keep him as a nickel.
Okay, your nickels are now
DeJean.
DeJean and Mitch, but see, we're counting Mitchell as an outside corner. See, again, think the whole season, though. Think
Right,
the whole
right. No,
season.
but Maddox
Mitchell's
too,
going to
right?
play mostly at outside corner. Is he?
Yeah, you got 3 guys can do it. You have
Right.
Mitchell, you have DeJean, and you have Maddox. So that still gives you 9 total instead of 8, but like they can figure out what to do from there. But yeah, it's an interesting, let's just call it an interesting situation confronting the team.
Mitchell for the long haul of the season's got to be an outside corner. I mean, he's been phenomenal. Okay, I can't. He's kind of mastered the nickel position, but give Vic credit. No team mentioned that he can play. He's going to be a nickel player because he's not going to be long term. He's obviously going to be an outside corner, but he may start the season as a nickel. So when we look at outside corner, see, do you have Ricks? I guess Ricks won't make it. It'd be hard for him to make it.
Listen, Ricks, Job. I mean,
Job's really good specials, but
yeah, I don't see how it works out. Well, I mean, unless things change a lot over the next week and a half or 2, which
Yeah.
they could. But right now, it does seem like Ricks and Job and is there somebody else I'm missing in that cornerback group? No, those are the 2 guys who were on the team last year that may not be able to make it back numerically.
yeah, I don't have McPherson on or Perry Nickerson has made a
Yeah.
couple plays here and there. Andre Sam don't have it at safety. Sean Stevens don't have it at corner. And we're gonna have to trim it even more when we do this for real next week. So it's gonna be a challenge.
All right. That is going to do it for this episode of Inside the Birds, the leading podcast in Eagles intel. As always, we thank you for flying with us inside the birds. Be sure to check out our friends at PHLSportsNation.com. They're enhancing the fans' experience with their coverage of all Philadelphia sports teams. For the fan, by the fan is their motto. So make sure you check them out at PHLSportsNation.com and on Twitter at PHL Sports Nation.